Chapter 4. "How did you do that, Grandpa?" Hannah asked, turning around. Behind her, the elegant meal, with its many plates, goblets, glasses, and silverware, was gone. Instead, there was a polished table on which a single wooden bowl sat between two ornate silver candlesticks. A black stove, pouring out heat, squatted against the far wall. There were shelves on either side of the stove, filled with crockery, pots, and linens. Several strings of onions hung from the ceiling. The room smelled of fresh-baked bread. "It must be the wine," Hannah thought. "It's giving me daydreams." "Well?" The question came from behind her in a woman's voice, strongly accented. "Is he coming?" Confused, Hannah looked around for the speaker. "The Prophet Elijah?" she asked. "And do you think the Prophet Elijah walks in every time you open a door? There's a fool in every house." The woman was dressed in a dark skirt covered with a smudged apron, an embroidered blouse with the sleeves rolled up, and a blue kerchief on her head. Her bare arms were dusted with flour. Standing at a low table near a sink, she was pounding bread dough. Hannah was stunned. It was as if she'd suddenly been transported to a movie set. The illusion was so complete, she couldn't even find an answer. And then the words the woman had spoken came to her. "Agoizat Wurzel." It was a Yiddish phrase her grandfather used all the time, and which she'd never understood before. Yet now it was as clear as if she could speak the language herself. "Agoizat Wurzel," meaning, "as the peasant says." "So, Chaya, is Shmuel coming or not?" The woman did not look up from the dough as she spoke, but continued to beat it with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Hannah looked out the door again, as if it could offer her some clue. Since she'd opened one door and entered this daydream, perhaps going through another would bring her home again. It was worth a try. Taking a step forward, she saw that the man crossing the field was much closer now. She could make him out clearly. He had a thick black beard and a full head of black hair topped with a cap. His shirt was full-sleeved, and the loose-fitting trousers were pushed into the tops of high leather boots. What Rosemary would give for such boots, she thought. The man was no longer singing, but was whistling a vaguely familiar song. When she realized it was Dayenu, she laughed. "Oh, I get it," she muttered, though she didn't really. But she decided in that instant to play along. Whether it was a dream or an elaborate game, she'd show them all she was a good sport. It was certainly better than Grandpa Will's deadly, dull Seder lessons. "He's coming," she said, turning back to the woman. "Good. Set the table, and be sure to use the Sabbath cloth. This is a special occasion, after all. It's not every day my baby brother is to be married the next morning." She wiped her hands on the apron. "Well, Chaya, move." Chaya. But that's my Hebrew name, Hannah thought. The one I was given to honor Aunt Ava's dead friend. Weird. She wondered how the woman knew that name, then laughed under her breath at her own foolishness. Of course the woman knew. She was part of this crazy game, this crazy dream. But even as she thought that, Hannah felt a panic pressure in her chest. Where was she? And where were her parents, and Aaron, and Aunt Ava, and the others? She stared at the door again, as if it held the answer. "Why are you standing there looking like a chlim fool, Chaya? The cloth, child. I swear, the fever that carried your poor parents off, may they rest in peace, has done you more damage than we thought. It was a miracle you survived at all. And while that was surely part of God's orderly plan, its meaning is beyond me. Sometimes, child, you make me wonder." Whatever it was the woman wondered never got said, for just then the bearded man marched into the house, having dropped his host somewhere outside. He grabbed Hannah before she could protest and spun her around. "Hello, little niece. Give your almost married Uncle Shmuel a hug." Hannah knew she had no Uncle Shmuel. Certainly no one as big and bearded as this man, who smelled of sweat and grass and horses. But his joy was contagious. She gave him a hug. Put her down, Shmuel, the woman scolded. She's still recovering from her illness. You know how easily she gets upset and forgets things. And go wash yourself. Wonder that Faik never accepted the Shadan's offer for your hand in marriage. You are so much of a prize you can kiss women without bathing? She held out a large flowered bowl filled with water. Not such a prize? Asked Shmuel, as he dipped his hands into the bowl, slopping water over the side. I have all my teeth and all my hair, 2 fine work horses, a 4-room house, and 20 acres of land beside. I work hard, and I do not smell that bad, little Chaya? Without waiting for her answer, he lifted the water to his face and continued washing noisily. What is the child going to say, Shmuel? She adores you, but it will be very crowded in this house with another woman if you do not bathe regularly, even though the new woman is that jewel, Faye. Shmuel reached out and pinched his sister on the cheek. Do you adore me too, Gittel? He asked, laughing fondly. Annoyed, she drew back from his touch, and a pin shook loose from her hair. Making a wry mouth, she removed her kerchief and drew out the other 2 pins. Her thick black hair cascaded down to the small of her back. I adore any of my brothers the day before they get married, she said. Then, with a swift movement, she wrapped the hair around her head into a bun, which she pinned on the top of her head again. She put the kerchief back over the hair and knotted it securely. Hannah watched silently, trying to take it all in. How could she be both Hannah and this Chaya, whose parents had died of a mysterious disease? She knew she was Hannah. She knew because she remembered. She remembered her mother and her father, and her brother Aaron, with his big blue eyes and great smile. She remembered her house, with the jungle gym in the backyard, and the 17 stuffed dogs on her bed. She remembered her best friend Rosemary, who'd had braces the year before she did, and had showed her how to eat jelly beans with them on, even though you weren't supposed to. She remembered her school in New Rochelle. As she remembered, she forgot to be a good sport, and her eyes began to fill with tears. But the man Shmuel and the woman Gittel didn't seem to notice. They were too involved in their own conversation. If you would accept Yitzhak the butcher's offer, you could be married and living in a fine new house in the center of the shtetl, Shmuel said. Then you would not have to share your kitchen with Faik or anyone else. He turned and winked at Hannah. Yitzhak the butcher is a monster. All he wants is a nurse for his children. All butchers are monsters to someone who refuses meat, Shmuel said. And he only has 2 children, not an army. They are young enough so you could be a real mother to them, and you are young enough so you could give him even more. Ha! Shmuel turned and smiled at Hannah, signaling her closer to his side.